My name is Brian. I'm calling from Haggerty Insurance. I'm one of the material damage appraisers over here. I've completed the estimate on your 1993 Ford Aerostar wagon. My recommendation to the adjusters that the vehicle is going to be deemed a total loss, or should be deemed a total loss. We've got a $4,000 guaranteed value on it. My initial estimate is $4,665.18, which exceeds your guaranteed value. New York is a 75% total loss threshold state, so we could really only go to about $3,000 on it. So we've exceeded the state limit by about $1,600, and that's just based on what I can see. I'm sure there's going to be additional damages found once the vehicle is disassembled. So again, my recommendation to Connie is that the vehicle should be deemed a total loss. You should be hearing from Connie or the total loss adjuster next few business days. And go from there. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Quite how bad it is. Oh, it's bad. Holy shit. And welcome back to Janky AF. Now, dig, if you will, the picture. It's a beautiful late summer morning. You've just picked up your fantastic 1993 Ford Aerostar Sport from the shop. It's just gotten a lot of work done to it, more work, in fact, in a monetary sense than the car was worth in the beginning, or at least what you paid for it. And you're driving along, and all of a sudden, while observing all the beautiful nature, you have a very close encounter with that said nature. Here. All right, so the ironic thing is, well, maybe the fitting thing is, this side of the Aerostar is actually like the good side. It's the Aerostar's good side, a little body rust developing, but not really. And of course, there is, this giant hole, but, forget all that. While you're just looking at it, it's kind of the pristine side. So in a way, it was good that it did not hit that side. And we'll give you a little closer in-person look here. Now, the thing was, I did have just a split second to slam on the brakes. I'm driving, in sort of feeling so great about it, just spent a bunch of money. And to be quite honest with you, I've misplaced the paperwork. I was gonna go over every single little nut and bolt that I had done to it. We'll do that later, but for me, the more important sort of monetary calculation here is how much this car is worth, and the process with all the insurance company, Haggerty, by the way, who was great to work with, and so we'll go over all that. But for now, obviously front bumper, that's a big one. We have the grill, just barely got it, and honestly, I could probably piece this together. Truth be told, there was a tiny little gap in the grill before, but it got that, and then, headlight bezel. Unfortunately, it cracked the hood, which really sucks because this is like a composite carbon fiber. Now, again, I'm not even that worried about this, but it's just one of those things where it barely got it. I slammed on the brakes, and if I had hit it head on, maybe it wouldn't have been as bad because it just would have been all front stuff. Then again, maybe with a bigger impact, you start to affect the radiator and stuff like that. So you could tell the deer was almost past me, and I kind of got his rear 3/4 there, but this is, you can still see some fibers of it in there, and this you can see, really the impact. And of course, the Aerostar, being being the tank that it is, it just kept going. But you can see this pretty large panel gap here that's been created, and when you open the door, you can hear it, catch on there. And obviously, there's already starting to a little paint thing starting there. There's still pieces of debris and whatnot in here. It starts right up, which it didn't when I first got it home after I parked it. I'm guessing there was some sort of drain because of, the headlights or a fuse or something like that. It appears that all the wiring on the lights is all still good, all the connections are good. So in theory, I can just plug and play new lights once I get all this up. This, I can't tell by looking at it. It looks like it is bent a little bit down here, but this piece, this metal piece, and you can tell me, may actually bend anyways where it meets the bumper. But if not, I'm sure I can pound that back into place. I do this little lip, which I do think you can buy, but if I get a non-sport bumper, that's nice that this remained intact here. And the annoying part is even if I got a green fender, maybe I think I can probably remove this logo, and if you know how to, please let me know. Maybe like a heat gun or just like some water or something, but I gotta imagine I could probably remove that logo and put it back on. So that's sort of like my immediate calculations. Now I am gonna fix this thing, of course, and we'll get into that in a second, but maybe I can show you under the hood. That cowl always sort of popped up, but we do have like a funny aftermarket radiator, new radiator. There's a new, you can kind of see the new metal down there. The alternator is fairly new. That was from last summer, and then our water pump is new. Basically, you know, they found one leak, and when they started putting more, fixing things, they found more leaks. So, you know, they noticed the water pump was leaking. Initially, it was just brakes and wheel bearings. It was just going to be an inspection, and then it was like, okay, we need brakes and wheel bearings. And then once they did that, they noticed the water pump was leaking a little bit, and actually the car was quote unquote done. I came up to get it, and I said, well, why don't we just do the water pump now? So it's funny because if I hadn't, maybe I would have, you know, had the wreck before I put in the second bill, which was about the same size. Now I paid $1,500 for this vehicle originally, and between those two service receipts, we were over the purchase price of the vehicle. I'll just say that much. But the funny thing is, the labor cost wasn't even really that bad. It's a lot of parts costs. So there you go. There's the damage on the 93 Aerostar. Very unfortunate. But I think we'll sit down now and set up, and I'll tell you exactly sort of what the breakdown is for how much this car. So you can see this is the more janky side of the Aerostar. So at least we got, you know, we get the driver's side now is a real janky compared to the passenger side. We'll sit down, we'll go over what exactly this car was valued at using Haggerty's like sort of agreed valuation. We'll go over sort of how much I'm into it, and then we'll go over how much they were willing to pay me out for the car, because when a car is a total loss, which of course this was, they basically want you to always wave to the neighbors. They either buy the car from you, or you keep the car, and that goes against the payout price. And of course, there's also a deductible. So let's get into that right now in a different setting, okay? Janky do thanky. Okay, and we're back. Now, what better setting, of course, than a Ford Aerostar to go over this information? So, okay, I get an email, and they confirm it's the total loss. First, you call the insurance company, you tell them about the claim, blah, blah, blah. They go over that. They do the estimate. I think they estimated it was going to cost like $4,600 to fix this vehicle. I got to say, through this whole process, and I wish they would pay me to advertise, but they're not. But Haggerty has been absolutely fantastic in this whole process. Like, even just like calling back and being on the phone. I talked to this wonderful woman, Connie, when I first reported the incident. You know, she was going over, are you going to keep the car? You're not going to keep the car. I'm like, it was never a decision to me. I was like, I'm going to keep the car. And I was like, it doesn't really mean much to that many people, but it means a lot to me. And she starts going on a story about how she owned 2 Aerostars. And of course, it's never one, it's always 2. There's always repeat customers when it comes to the Aerostar. She said how great it was, how reliable it was. One of them used to be like a welding business or something, or some sort of business where maybe there was like a fish tank business or something, but water dripped out, kind of rusted out the unibody. And they got another Aerostar after that. One was at least that gold, that beautiful gold champagne color. So just, you know, it seems like they're car people, and even if they're not, this particular person just so happened to have a Ford Aerostar, 2 of them actually. So that was like just sort of like hilarious, and it sort of like set the tone for the good customer service that I got. Anyhow, with Haggerty, you agree upon a value for the car. So me and Haggerty had agreed that this car was worth $4,000. Now, the brown Aerostar that you see behind me is actually valued at $5,000, and that only has a $500 deductible. Now, that policy was written older. Maybe the deductible was just locked in and it was lower. When I bought this, now again, I bought this for only $1,500. So when the car was valued at $4,000, I was like, okay, I'm doing great, you know. Now, I probably could have called and raised the value of that vehicle, but I do have, and this one has a $1,000 deductible instead of a $500 deductible. Now, after having done the valve cover gasket after my failed attempt home, and you drive home and you can watch that video, paying my friend John to go get the vehicle, to bring it from Ohio to Buffalo, doing the valve cover gasket, doing the water pump, not the water pump, excuse me, doing the alternator last year, and then doing all the stuff I did this year, brakes, wheel bearings, water pump, radiator, etc. I'm obviously in way more than my $1,500 price, but I'm probably in pretty close to the $4,000 valuation. So yeah, I probably could have gotten a little bit more out of it if I was smarter and maybe like push the limits a little bit, but it's probably a pretty fair evaluation of what this car is actually worth. So anyways, it's valued at $4,000 and $1,000 deductible. That's the kicker. That's where they really get you, because that is like, $1,000 extra is a lot more money to play with when it comes to an Aerostar, purchase, or parts car purchase, or just purchasing parts. And we'll get into that in a second. Anyways, so there's two options here. Your payment, you keep your vehicle. Guaranteed value amount, $4,000, less salvage. Now that is basically, they find a couple of different auction prices and they average them out, and that's what they determine the salvage cost to be. So less salvage, $320.48. So basically what they're saying, even though they valued the vehicle at $4,000, of course that's pre-accident, but they're saying this car, as it sits right now, as I sit in it, is worth $320.48, which is crazy. So it makes the decision to keep it a lot easier. Deductible, $1,000. Total offer, $2,679.52. Your payment, you do not keep the vehicle, guaranteed value amount, deductible $1,000, total offer $3,000. So by keeping this vehicle, I'm only losing $320.48. That, to me, just speaks to the underrated value of Aerostars, and so why it's like, I always say on the Aerostar, it's like they're kind of like inflation proof, and just as a car, their value is so low that compared to any other car from the 90s you can get, you're just getting so much more capability with all the room, blah, blah, blah. You can watch Year of the Aerostar to hear me go on my tangent. But that's good news for me. And she said it'll probably only be a few $100s. Because I was thinking if the value of this was like $1,000, now I'm only getting paid out $2,000, which, if I'm going to go get a car, get a running Aerostar, great. But now the fork in the road that I come to, and I'm going to put this on a poll, is what do I do next? My options are, I've already decided to keep this vehicle. I could just sell this vehicle and get my $3,000 and go try to buy another one. I'm very attached to the vehicle. Also, I've done so much work to the vehicle. So we're keeping the vehicle. That's the first decision. The next decision, as I see it, I can try to assemble parts and fix it, which on paper would make the most sense because I don't need a whole nother van. I just need, fender, bumper, grill, headlight bezel, headlight, and that's pretty much it. I think I said fender. However, finding those parts, as anyone in the Aerostar community knows, is very, very difficult, particularly bumpers. Now, I have, of course, been scouring Marketplace, like I always do, but even turbocharged, trying to find parts in Aerostars. I found almost all the parts I need. The trouble is, by the time you get them shipped, if people are even willing to ship them, you're going to start racking up the price. These bumpers now are getting really expensive. I think I found a rear bumper for $120, but it's down in North Carolina. I either have to pay hundreds of dollars of shipping or drive down to get it. And a lot of times when I message people on Marketplace, they're very unreceptive. Most people don't even message me back, and some say, sorry, we're not going to ship it, which I understand. It's a pain. Also on Marketplace, it's not like eBay where there's sort of like an interface to ship. Now, I know there is sort of an interface on Marketplace, but it's a little bit more janky. So there's a little bit more trust involved in, hey, I'm going to send you payment and you're going to send me the bumper, and one person is trusting the other for that transaction to occur before they reciprocate. So option 2 is to buy a parts vehicle, a non-running Aerostar that's cheap, sub $1,000, and then either try to go get it or pay for a shipping company to ship it to me, because I have almost $2,700 to play with here. Not that I shouldn't just take some of that money and put it towards debt or something like that, but in this scenario, in theory, I have that much money. Go get a parts van, say go get a van for $500 or $600, and then if it's kind of near me, not all the way across the country, you're looking at maybe a sub $1,000 shipping cost, and that way it just shows up at my house one day and I have an Aerostar, presumably with all the parts I need. Now, when you're looking at parts Aerostars, a lot of the parts Aerostars are missing certain things like bumpers too, so you really got to be careful and sort of what are you going to favor if it has all the bumpers and the fenders, but then it doesn't have the rear bumper, or how far gone is the Aerostar? Maybe it runs and drives, and you can even take these crushed parts, put them on that one, and then you're almost getting a third Aerostar out of the deal. Or do I just buy a really nice Aerostar? Now, really nice, you know, for $2,700, you're getting into the nicer territory, you know, like running and driving and all that. Do I try to go buy an Aerostar that can kind of replace this one for the time being, and then over time scour and try to find the parts one by one, bit by bit as I can? Or do I just take the money, do that same thing with the scouring and just like pay off some credit card debt, save myself some money in interest, and then, you know, next spring, you know, the fall's coming here, this car's not gonna be driven in the winter anyways, it does run and drive, you know, do I stash it away, start looking for the parts, and in the meantime, just take that cash, throw it towards debt? Or do I buy a car completely unrelated? You know, I've always wanted to get my sweetheart a particular convertible that she used to have back in the day. That's another video. She sold it, she regretted it. And I always wanted to get a copy of that, or a version of that for her. I thought it'd just be like a sweet gesture and a very nice story. Now that's probably a little out of that $2,700 price range. However, you could put that money towards it, but now you're starting to get a little tricky where you're using this money, which should be going to fixing this vehicle, onto a totally other vehicle, and not even covering the entire cost of it, and sending none of that money towards actually getting this one. So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit. Always a dangerous game, and of course one that I've done many times in my car buying career already thus far. Final option, do I get something that is related to my fleet but not an Aerostar? Like there was this orange, it's like a reddish orange, I think it looks orange to my eye, Fiat X19 for sale in Massachusetts, like very little rust. It wasn't running, but it was complete and it was all there. It just was like kind of sitting for a while for $1,500. And I've seen another X19 for $1,300 that also is a project, but the bones are good. You're like not like a total rust bucket. So in theory, I could take that, have a second parts car for my gold Fiat, and then eventually have like a full second car with the 3 cars I could make 2 out of. Then maybe I have a Fiat. Or do I get, like, I've thought about K20 swapping my Fiat. That's a thing, if you know, in the Fiat's the Honda Acura K20 engine. So do I buy a parts car for the Fiat, for the like an engine swap car, and use that capital I have to get that process going? That's all the things I've thought of. It's a lot to think of. I think I've already kind of made a decision, but I am going to put it out for a poll just to see what people think. In the meantime, the silver lining to all this is we have a lot of shopping to do, window shopping to do, which we do anyways on Year of the Aerostar, but now we actually have, it actually becomes a little bit more real because we could be looking for the next Aerostar in the fleet. And even if it's a parts Aerostar, that parts Aerostar could eventually be, you know, a running member of the fleet. So, all that is to say that we are going to have like sort of a nice special series of Year of the Aerostar where we're actually shopping for Beef Janky's next Aerostar, if that's the route I decide to go. And I've kind of probably given away the secret because I probably am going to buy another Aerostar. But I haven't decided yet, and I haven't made any purchases yet, so something could pop up in the meantime. Too good to pass up. It's really close by, and I spring on it. So I'm still open to taking advice, but you know, obviously I want to get this thing fixed up. So that's sort of priority number one. But you never know. It's very easy to get distracted, especially when you're Beef Janky. So I haven't been putting out any other videos, any other episodes of any other series because I wanted to do this first, and we've just had so much going on here, as always, with work, with all sorts of stuff. So I wanted to get this out. I wanted to update everybody on what was going on with my 1993 Aerostar. I have hit a deer, and it is a total loss, if you hadn't figured that out by now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have obviously a lot more episodes of things and videos of things related to this sad event that happened, and just the irony of coming home from the mechanics after having not only dumped a bunch of money into it, but also gotten it in the best shape it's ever been in under my tutelage, and then just immediately going about 10 steps backwards. But, you know, all in a day's work for a janky. So thanks for coming along for the ride. We will have so much more Aerostar stuff coming soon, and hopefully some other stuff as time permits. We thank you so much for watching, and until next time, Janky do thanky. Let's start the car. We also never got that exhaust leak fixed, but now I'm glad that I haven't done that yet, because it saves a little money for... I forgot, I just hit 120,000 miles in this vehicle too. I just turned over onto 120,000, so that was another great milestone before we... and now it's had its first, you know, deer collision, so I guess that's a milestone too. Okay. Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I know you're supposed to stop. I think it just kept on moving. I didn't see it anywhere, and I you know, didn't stop. So, you know, hopefully there's not like an internal bleeding situation, because I do care about the animal. But I saw flashes of like debris go up, so I know that it's not great. We did damage to something. We're just gonna see quite how bad it is. Oh, it's bad. Holy shit. Sorry for my language. Oh, we got the hood too. Oh my God.